What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Kris from Trauma. Thank you so much for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us on your program.
Of course. Of course.
Definitely appreciate it.
Of course. I gotta say, As the World Dies, being the latest album, what an appropriate, even though this album is 2 years old, it seems like it has a lot more context now with everything going on.
Yeah, I kind of wish it wasn't that way. At the time when we came up with that title, I forget what was going on then, but it definitely is a little bit appropriate for what is happening now.
Yeah.
But let's hope it changes.
Let's hope.
In the near future.
Let's hope. But being that this record is 2 years old now, we'll get this question out of the way. Are we expecting some new stuff fairly soon?
Yeah. We're actually working on a brand new album right now, and we are hopeful that we can get it out sometime in the fall.
Oh, interesting. Are you planning to maybe make like a direct continuation from what people were hearing from As the World Dies, or is this going to be like a new star for Trauma in a way?
It's going to be pretty similar. The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is we're incorporating a little more faster songs and a little more drum and guitar orientated, heavier kind of riffs and stuff like that. But we really don't have a title for it at the moment, but it'll be probably pretty similar to what's happening now, or the last title, I should say. But we're not trying to duplicate what we did before. It's going to be definitely different than the last record.
Mm-hmm. Is there like a preconceived idea that you have going into songwriting mode, like knowing like this is what we want it to sound like, this is what we want to achieve, or is there kind of like a lot of improvising involved with the songwriting?
Well, to be honest with you, we definitely need to come up with a theme for it. So far, the songs, it's thrash metal music, so it's kind of like it's not about singing about bunny rabbits and butterflies, and it's got some doom and gloom going on, but it's kind of in reference to kind of what's going on in a certain capacity. But like I said, we don't want to really copy what we did before. As far as improvising, we don't do. Pretty much the songs are all structured in a certain way, so it's not like a free for all or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's coming along really good.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, having like the traditional like sort of thrash sound within your style, like, I mean, is there like room for experimentation in the style that you incorporate, or do you try to maybe like stick with a certain formula?
We kind of, throw a lot of ideas out, together. Right now we're swapping files and everything. People come up with different ideas and whatnot, and we just kind of see what works and what doesn't, and kind of take it from there, But like I said, we definitely keep to a certain type of structure, mixing old with new, so as much as possible.
Yeah. When you look at the entirety of your catalog, from As the World Dies to Rapture and Wrath to, Scratch and Scream, like, is it almost kind of like a reflection or maybe like a self-portrait of who you and the rest of the band are at that particular time?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the Scratch and Scream thing was done so long ago that, that's kind of what the band was at that particular moment in time. And then we didn't reform the band until 2013, and we put the Rapture and Wrath album out. It's not one of my favorite records, to be honest with you, because we didn't really have the lineup that we have now, and that was kind of, we didn't really know. We wanted to try to see, who would pick up on it and who wouldn't at that particular moment in time, and then we had a complete lineup change to do, As the World Dies. So it's kind of more in that kind of format, but we got a really good lineup now.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that, Greg Christian, who's played with Testament and Hand of Fire and so many other bands, I mean, I'd imagine he brought a lot of new stuff into Trauma as well, right?
Yeah, definitely, man. Greg comes up with some really good ideas for stuff.
When it comes to like songwriting, like when do you almost like this? We kind of went over this before with like the whole improvising thing, but like, do you like know like the sort of like the best way to ask this, like, do you have an end goal that you're trying to achieve? Like, do you have like a certain goal that you have to reach with songwriting, or is like do you just kind of let things happen organically and fall into place?
We kind of let it happen a little bit organically, but sometimes doing it the organically way is good, but sometimes, it gets a little scattered. So we try to, bring the reins back in and kind of try to develop a song structure that we think people, would pick up on and like, like, once again, not really copying anything that we've done in the past, but try, different types of riffs and different types of drum patterns, and same thing with the vocals, So it's kind of like someone will write like maybe a minute or two of a certain riff, and then I'll put drums on it, and then we kind of take it from there to see how it can kind of develop into something really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you ever worried?
There's a lot of
you were saying?
There's a lot of back and forth files going on,
Yeah, thank God for file sharing, right?
Exactly. Makes it a lot easier, definitely.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where, I know you're not the vocalist, but is there ever a time where maybe a concept or lyrics can determine the outcome of the music itself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. If Donnie Hillier comes up with something really cool, we try to write around that. Or we just come up with the music and then he adds the vocals to the song. It goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. And is the music is the music open to interpretation, you would say?
Oh yeah, totally. Oh yeah. Nothing's really etched in stone until we actually go into the studio to record it for real.
Mm-hmm.
But by that time, it's been listened to, and arranged quite a few times. But until you're in the studio pressing the record button, even when you do that, sometimes the producer or whatever might come up with a different idea or something. We all change stuff on the spot.
Yeah. But I've always said that producers are like the fifth Beatle, the sixth Beatle. If you're in Slipknot, the 11th Beatle. So.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Now, being the drummer, do you need music before you come up with the rhythm and the beat, or do you have sometimes a whole drum pattern laid down, and then that could help the rest of the band right over that?
Oh yeah. There's times where I just come up with a minute of some sort of drum beat, multiple different times playing different patterns and stuff, and then I send it off to the guitar players and Greg. Say, hey, what do you think about this? And they could come up with some, a riff that kind of goes along with it. And, that could be the foundation of a certain part of the song. Yeah. So, it's just like constantly hammering on different, ideas is what it is.
Yeah. And I'd imagine you need certain catered drum gear to the style that you play, since Trauma's music is so intense, right? Yeah. I've got quite an arsenal of drums and different things that I use. So, I've been fortunate over the years to be endorsed by, Sonar and Peisty Cymbals and Aquarian Drumheads and all those guys. And, I'm really fortunate with that. So, and the other thing too is you just have to still like what you're doing and, try to come up with new ideas, It seems like Sonar has been sort of like the drum company that a lot of metal drummers have been using. I know that Tomas Heck of Meshuggah uses Sonar. I know that Ryan from Devin Townsend Project uses Sonar. What is it about Sonar that a lot of drummers are really gravitating to lately?
That's a good question. They make really, really good drums. They're all hand built in Germany. They have a particular sound that I really like. But but there's a lot of other drum companies too that a lot of metal and just overall musicians use. But I started using those quite a number of years ago, and I really like the way they sound live, and how they sound in the studio and stuff. So I think it's just they just make really, really good gear.
Yeah, there's some drum gear that's mainly dedicated towards the studio, and then some drum gear that's mainly dedicated for a live presence. It seems like Sonar is like the best of both worlds in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on each drummer's individual taste and all that. A lot of guys use DW and Tama and Pearl and Ludwig, and really just depends what you like, really.
Of course. And I mean, in terms of like cymbals, like are you using Zildjian or Sabian or?
No, I've been with Paiste since like 1989.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I signed with them when I was in a band called St. Elmo's Fire out of LA. We did like 4 different albums over the years, and I got involved with those guys a really long time ago. I've been to the factory in Switzerland, and I've had a really good experience with those guys. And they're always coming up with new lines of cymbals to try and all that as well. They're very innovative company.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about St. Elmo's Fire, if that's cool, because, like, I mean, with St. Elmo's Fire, with albums such as Power Drive or Desperate Years, like, those were also really, really...
Oh, wow, you know them. That's cool, man.
Yeah, and, I've always had this discussion with drummers, because whether you're playing smooth jazz or you're playing, death metal, I think in the end, it all comes down to, keeping rhythm and keeping beat. So is there maybe, like, a usual mind frame in terms of drumming that applies to any project that you're playing with, or do you kind of have to adjust your playing style a little bit depending if it was with Trauma or St. Elmo's Fire?
Well, yeah, you gotta adjust for the song. I've always been a type of drummer that I try to play to enhance the song. Per se, not to like try to show off and play like a million different things. And any type of musician, you got to be able to adjust to different styles and stuff. Trauma is a lot heavier than St. Elmo's Fire was. That was fun back then, but it's pretty much a different can of worms now. There's a lot of Trauma's music. There's a lot of double bass drum playing, and just a lot of different types of syncopated structures and whatnot. Of what's trying to be achieved in the music now. So it's definitely a different style for sure.
Did making those 4 St. Elmo's Fire albums at all, though, maybe influence you to bring in some new stuff to Trauma with the making of Rapture and Wrath and As the World Dies and this new stuff?
Not really, because that was kind of those were done a number of years ago. Periodically, I'll put something on and listen to it. Those albums were recorded. The funny thing was, those were all recorded like using 2-inch tape and stuff. Where now we got Pro Tools and whatnot, and everything's digital. But as far as style is concerned, I'm not really bringing anything from that particular, any of those albums to the table now. I'm trying to be as innovative as possible as a drummer, and try different things that work for the song.
Mm-hmm. That I find very, very unique, because like I thought, like every project, or I almost feel like, and obviously I'm not a musician, so shut me off if I'm totally talking out of my ass, but like I'd imagine every album that you're working on almost has to like enhance your skill in a way. So I thought that maybe like putting out 4 albums, going from Scratch and Scream to the stuff with St. Elmo's Fire, and then returning with a vengeance in Trauma, that thought maybe like returning with Trauma maybe allowed you to unleash any pent up energy that you kept with St. Elmo's, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a totally different. I did the Scratch and Scream album was way before any of the St. Elmo's Fire stuff. So that was, Jesus, man, that was like 1984.
Nine years before I was born.
Yeah, I was like freaking 20 when I did, when I recorded the drums on that album. And, during that time, there was only so many people you could really listen to get an idea of where to go in terms of like, influences back then. I don't even really remember who in the hell I was even listening to back then, but I used to play, I had a set where I had like, 11 tom-toms, and 2 guys as roadies, and, it was just like complete overkill, but, and then when I started doing the St. Elmo's Fire stuff, it was a little bit, I wouldn't say mellower, it was just a different style of music.
Yeah.
Kind of a little more hard rock edged at that time.
I would definitely agree with that. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Sure.
How do you know when a song is done?
How do you know? Pretty much when the producer is happy with, recording it, or I should say, the skeleton of the track being the rhythm tracks. If the rhythm tracks can make you, tap your foot, or completely give you goosebumps or whatever, then you're on the right track. And that's even with having the most important thing added is the vocals. But if you can achieve having the rhythm tracks where you just feel really good about it and it's powerful, then I think you're in the right direction. So
fair enough.
So that's kind of my answer with that. And one other thing too, I don't know if you're aware of, but we do have a tour that's booked in Germany. Hopefully it's going to happen in November and December. We're opening up for that band Burning Witches and Ross the Boss.
Yep, Burning Witches is awesome. I actually spoke with them right before the whole outbreak occurred.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're really, really looking forward to that. We're supposed to go to Sweden first, and then Germany and some other places, and we're just crossing our fingers that 5 months from now it'll be something that comes to light.
A lot can happen in 5 months, so you never know.
Yeah. We're hopeful it's going to happen.
And there was one more question I wanted to ask you is, because you guys started in the San Francisco thrash scene, right? Like with Cliff Burton and the band and everything like that. So like, I always feel like, obviously when people hear San Francisco, Northern California thrash, they'll resort to, the Metallicas and the Megadeths and Testaments and whatnot. But I've always thought that like you guys were very overlooked in that time. Like, but I'd imagine there's so much thrash going around there. Like, was it easier to kind of start a band of that style at that time just because that was such a thriving metal capital?
Yeah, I mean, it was completely different because, back in those days, there was like, music going on 7 nights a week. There was a ton of places you could play. The record labels started picking up on that genre of music. So it was worth it to put a band together to try to see if you can create something where you could draw a decent sized crowd and, pretty much get signed and then put an album out. And there was a ton of musicians, man, that were always, trying new things as well. So to answer your question, yeah, it was much easier then than it is now. Because there was a lot to gain back then in terms of, putting a band together and trying to get signed or getting signed and doing it for, some sort of, a money reason, even though the money wasn't always there. But, it was just a completely different time. I mean, Trauma actually, we actually did open for Slayer a couple times and, Exodus and all those kind of bands, but unfortunately it just, for some reason or another, everybody had different ideas and whatnot. I ended up moving to LA in the 80s to try to break into the studios down there, and I had pretty good success. But you know, it just trauma just kind of dissolved. But we talked about putting it together for a number of years, and then 2013 kind of came around where Mike Varney wanted to do a re-release of Scratch and Scream, and he suggested we should have a band that could go play live, which we did. We put it together. And we were lucky enough to get a couple really cool gigs. You know, we went over and played in Germany and stuff. So, you know, it was really cool. I wish we would have had the lineup we have now when we went over to Germany to play the first time. But anyhow, hopefully we'll get back over there soon.
Yeah. But, Kris, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really good to talk to you. Everybody, we are here with Kris of Trauma. Be sure to pick up As the World Dies. If you haven't already, new stuff coming very soon. And we will see you next time on Heavy New York.